Well, thank you for joining us today. It's always great to see you, my friend.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on.
Totally. So, for those of you that out there that don't know who I'm talking to today, Sean, will you tell us who you are, where you're at, and a little bit about your business?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Sean Brown. So I'm a high school senior photographer based in Portland, Oregon. I say Portland because when I say Vancouver, I have people come up to me like at the Push conference and say, Canada is so beautiful. And I'm not from Canada. So from the Portland, Oregon area and going on year 10 in business. So this is my 10th class of
Wow.
seniors. So I specialized in seniors almost right from the get-go. It's kind of what I've always done. And since then, I've also started kind of coaching and teaching other high school senior photographers how to create a thriving senior photography business so that you too can have the freedom, flexibility, and time that I think we all kind of want out of having a business.
Totally. And from a personal and from a lab perspective, um, Sean is one of the best educators out there. I was fortunate enough to sit through your presentation here, about a week ago, and super impressed. So if you are able and willing to look up Sean for his educational platform, he does a fantastic job. So I know that something interesting about you. I know that there's the beer, there's the tacos, and then at Push, I learned about your Hawaiian shirts. Was it that you like to wear?
Yes.
Wear?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
should have put one on for our conversation today, shouldn't I?
So, what's something else that's really interesting about you that nobody would know, and I potentially don't even know? What's interesting and something you want to share about Sean Brown?
Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
I'm trying to think because it's like I try to be as much of an open book as I possibly can. So one of the things that not a whole lot of people know is I am relatively younger in the senior photography educator community. And I started out pretty much right after college, but I went to college wanting to be a doctor, wanting to
Oh,
do cardiology. So I'm not sure if you knew
I
that, where
didn't
I
know that.
literally
No.
went to University of Washington up in Seattle, full intentions of doing cardiology, being a doctor, and
Hmm.
eventually the business side kind of started to take off at the exact same time that there's a little test called the MCAT, which
Yep. Just a
is
little
maybe
one.
not the most fun test that you want to take. And literally remember calling my mom and telling her that I had canceled it out, didn't even ask my parents' permission for it, and decided to go full into photography. So that's a little fun fact. I also love to travel. That's something I know we were talking about all our
Yep.
travels and all that stuff. So that's something I really really enjoy and love having the freedom with the business to actually be able to do that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I didn't know that. I've learned something today, which that's fantastic. So, in your successful business and coaching and helping and marketing and sales and all the things, this is probably going to be an impossible question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Is there one thing that you can stick your finger on and be like, this, this was the thing that really maybe was the turning point, or I teach this and I've been teaching it for the last 5 years because it works and it works and it works and it works without fail. Is there something that you could share with us, Sean? That fits that?
Yeah, and it's like it's so tough to boil it down to one thing, right? Where
Right.
it's, one of the things that I teach is that it's not just one thing in your business, it's kind of think of it as a puzzle piece where your business, so to speak, isn't going to be complete without all the pieces. But one of the things that I really focus heavily on in teaching, and something that I firmly believe, is that if you want to build a successful business, that especially if you're on the lower end or kind of the medium kind of boutique side of things, one of
Yep.
the things that I really heavily focus on is your brand. And one of the things that this is part of the push presentation, is this concept called the price value heuristic. And essentially what your brain does is it kind of creates shortcuts over hundreds of thousands, millions of years. Our brains have kind of been programmed to think in a certain way for survival instincts. And one of the
Mm-hmm.
things that your brain has done is, in order to save energy, to save calories in the times where it actually mattered, when we were living in caves and finding dino meat to cook up, or, well, I know it didn't overlap, but you guys get the idea, right? And one of the things that our brain did was say, okay, if we can save energy just even in thought processes, let's say that we know this to be true. You touch a stove and you do that once, that's, the stove that's been on, not to touch it again. Well, you don't need to go and think, oh, should I put my hand on the stove? What happens if I do? We just say no, stove, hot, and then we equate that with pain, right? One of the things is the heuristic. It's a shortcut that we use. And one of the things that I see a lot of photographers struggle with, especially photographers that shoot amazing work, is they say, well, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put out amazing work. And you know what? I want to be accessible to everybody. How often have we heard that? We want to be the photographer that everybody can come to. They all can get amazing art from us. And what happens is the photographers that kind of price themselves in the middle or the low end of things, they kind of actually squeeze themselves out of the market. And what I mean by that is we think, well, we want the clients that truly value what we do, who are willing to invest in us. And then we say, well, let's also appeal to everybody. Well, what happens is the people that are willing to invest, they kind of have this heuristic in the back of their head. They say, we want the best. And what do we equate the best with? Typically higher prices. We typically equate the better quality the product is, the service, the good, the higher the price it'll be. And kind of in the back of our head, if the price is low, we kind of think, well, what's wrong with this?
Right.
What isn't,
absolutely.
What isn't right with this? And so if you are looking to kind of break out into that higher end, especially if you're offering products as part of your photography model, through White House custom color, something like that, it's really tough to say, here's a 16 by 24 canvas, it's $50. People are thinking, okay, what's the catch?
What's
is
wrong with
it quality? And so it can seem counterintuitive, but pricing yourself high is actually a really great way to kind of establish your value as a photographer within your community. And obviously you have to kind of back it up with at least decent work. It's not just, a Band-Aid, but that's probably one thing that really is tied to brand pretty heavily.
Yeah, definitely. And during your program, like I was thinking about, situations in my life that I do that all the time. Oh yeah, I want this one because that's more expensive, and it's obviously better because it's twice as much or 4 times as much. I mean, and you gave the example of your tripod.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I was going to Germany, I don't speak a lick of German. My family does. My mom, my mom's side on the aunt and uncle, they speak German, and so I could have had them translate. But keep it short, I walked into a camera shop, tripod had broke. There's a €50 one and a €200 one. Which one did I go with? The €200 one, because I thought it would be higher quality, and it turned out that hunch was right.
Yeah. Yeah, very, very true. So as we're moving into the next year, I know you have big plans. What are you doing? What's your path for the first quarter next year, Sean?
Yeah. So for the first quarter next year, I really take some time off to kind of reset on the business side of things. And one of the things that I am personally trying to start doing every single year is taking about a week off where I actually just map out the entire year, where I sit down, I have some, some time alone where I'm not distracted by, pets or, girlfriend or anything like that. And really taking some time to just focus on the business and forcing myself to say, okay, what is next for me in my business? What is, my first quarter marketing strategy going to look like? What do I need to do in terms of getting booked clients? What do I need to do to improve the client experience? And kind of taking everything that's happened in 2022 and putting it into the kind of the forefront of what I'm looking to do moving forward. And so that's something I'm really working on, focusing on doing. Really, I think continuing on, especially on the senior side of things, continuing what I've done, which is really trying to get a variety of content out there, a mix of video, reels, obviously still photos, marketing graphics, like those types of things where it almost doesn't feel like you're selling to your clients, looking at that, how those have worked previously. So keeping doing what I'm doing, but definitely sitting down and having a little bit more of a game plan rather than kind of coming into the next week and going, okay, what's my marketing plan? Almost mapping it out a little bit further down the road.
Totally. So I think if the average photographer was going to say what they would love to be able to do in the first quarter, they would say exactly what you just said. Now, the difference between the average photographer and Sean Brown is that you're going to do it. So where do you find that motivation, and how do you force yourself to, like, okay, I want to take a couple of weeks off and do this, and then it's day 3, and I think I'd rather do this. It's day 4. I think I'd rather do this. Like, how do you do that, Sean, and actually police yourself to make sure you're getting these things done, because you do that?
Yeah. Well, I think half of it comes down to you reflecting on how bad do you actually want it. Is it a business that you're dreaming up and you're just happening to say, hey, let's say your goal is to make 100,000 in revenue in your business, right? Mm-hmm. You say, how bad do you actually want that? Are you willing to actually put in the work? And you have to kind of ask yourself that. Or are you okay with a business that may look a little bit different? And so I think half of it comes from knowing what it is that you truly want. And if you're having a difficulty finding that motivation, maybe it's time to reassess what you're looking for out of the business, right? How much are you actually willing to put in to make it happen, or take the steps that it takes to get there? And so for me, it comes very naturally and very easy, because this is what I want to do. This isn't just, a flash in the pan. This is something that I truly want to do year in and year out. And I know that it's going to take that strategy in the beginning of the year to map it out and lay it out. And one of the things too is, if you are struggling to find that motivation, having a mentor or somebody that you can have that holds you accountable, I think is huge as well. Yeah. Where you can, it's maybe not as, relying on you doing the work, but even just, or on them doing the work, I should say, but just having somebody you can check in with and say, you know what, here's what I'm going to do. Can you send me a text in a week or two? And just make sure I'm on track. Or one of the things that we do in our mastermind is everyone has an accountability partner. And that the sole purpose of that is for them to do a quarterly or monthly check-in and just see, where are you on track? Because it's very easy to look back at the end of, say, 2022, and we go, our goal was 100,000. Crap, I'm 25K short, or I'm 50K short. Mm-hmm. What do I do? Yeah. Well, it's much easier to fix that in the beginning of the year too. And it kind of comes from, again, holding yourself accountable, but even having some systems in place to really help you along that process too.
Yeah, definitely. So most of the photographers that I talk to across the country, I would say the vast majority, have a really strong why for the reason they're in photography. What is your why, Sean?
So, and it's funny you asked this, because it literally just happened yesterday. And before we hopped on this call, we actually, I got a text from that client basically reinforcing why it is that I do what I do. With high school seniors especially, we are kind of in an era where social media runs their world. Yeah, I think that's, if you know a teen, they're like, yeah, you often see them like this, right? Where it's their phone's right in front of their face. They're glued to TikTok. They're glued to Instagram, to YouTube, and they see that they need to look a certain way. They need to dress a certain way. They need to act a certain way. They need to fit some sort of pre-described mold. And if they don't fit that mold, then they're not acceptable. And one of the things that I wanted very early on in my business was for clients that come to me to not have to fit that mold. I want them to stand out for who they are. And what I want to do is I want to be able for them to see their true natural beauty, to be able to see who they actually are at that moment in life and be the best version of themselves, where they don't have to fit a certain mold like they've always been told their whole lives. And I think when you hone in on that, it becomes a really, really powerful thing in your marketing. And one of the things that you have to do is listen to also what your clients are telling you and what they want. But one of the things that my clients had said is, this was right when I was getting started. They came to me and they said, you know what do you like? I asked them, what do you like about my work? And one of the things that they said was, you know what, it looks like us. It doesn't look overly edited. The
Yep.
makeup isn't super heavy to the point that, I'm looking like Kim Kardashian, even though I don't even look like her, right? And I'm able to just be myself. And when you hone in on that, you attract your ideal client. And so it was actually a client that had worked with another photographer before. And one of the things that they had told me, they booked me and said, you know what, we didn't really love all her photos, and we're just hoping for a little bit better of an experience this time around. We wanted her to be herself. And one of the things that comes from is me just opening up to my clients as well. But my why goes back to that. I want you to be you in your photos. And so if I have to be a little bit, sillier, or if I have to be a little bit more, lighthearted and stuff like that, like that's my personality. That's what I want to try to extract out of my clients to allow them to do the same. We actually had their image premiere and ordering session last night. And one of the things that the whole time during their slideshow, they're going, oh my gosh, oh, wow. And like those exclamations that you want to hear from your clients. And the gal, actually, the senior left the room to go let her boyfriend into the studio for a minute. And mom goes, I can't thank you enough. I've never seen her light up like that. I've never seen her feel that way about herself. And that's what we're giving to our clients. And that's what we ultimately want. I got a text from her today, and she goes, Sean, it was something like, Sean, we can't thank you enough for this experience. We showed her dad her photos last night, and he is, beyond words, and it's something like, I'll just actually read the text because it's literally top of my phone. She goes, Sean, we can't thank you enough. My husband was really impressed. We both had never seen pictures of her like that, and so very happy. Your talent and kindness show through in your work. Friends already asking. We're happy to recommend you. Take care. Happy Friday. Those are the texts that we want, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
And it all comes from knowing your why. And if you're capping your seniors by saying, you know what, you need to wear this, you need to do that. And obviously we're going to guide them as photographers, but it comes down to more. It gives them the freedom to truly express who they are. And it comes from ultimately how you approach them as a photographer. Are you closed off? Are you nervous? Or are you showing up with some excitement, some energy, getting to know them, and then putting your spin on things to truly break them out of their shell?
Yeah, and you definitely do that. I mean, all of your behind the scenes and your social media and your vlog and everything. I mean, you're so open and energetic, and you're having fun. You can tell you're having fun, so that can't help but translate to your client.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So if you're not having fun, it's like, maybe it's time to pick up a new genre of photography, or if you hate photographing families or something like that, maybe it's time to try out seniors. Or if you don't really like seniors, maybe it's time to try out there are ways to find what you're truly passionate about that ultimately then translate into a better client experience for your clients.
Right. And it's okay to switch, reinvent yourself, get excited again. Yeah, that's very wise words. So looking back at your career, you said 10 years. If you could give a piece of advice from all the things you've experienced in that time, what would that piece of advice be to everybody that's listening along today?
It's a lot to boil down into one piece. Right?
Another puzzle piece for you. I like how you said that before.
I think it kind of goes back to what we were talking about, which is be you. And that sounds really cliche, and I'm going to elaborate on that just a little bit. But when you go to a photographer, and working with seniors, this is especially prevalent. I think especially if you're on the wedding side, this is probably just starting to be seen. And as you move into the families, as Generation Z and the kind of the later stage millennials kind of start to age up, one of the things that you're going to see is they want a photographer who is authentic, who is real, who isn't just putting on a facade, in front of the social media. It's like, oh, my life is perfect and all my photos that I take are amazing. That's not what people want. And if you go and you look at who you are following on social media or who you resonate with, how many people do you follow where it's like everything's perfect? It's all, butterflies and rainbows, versus the person that is willing to get a little bit vulnerable and willing to show who they are, or actually show their authentic personality. And, one of the things that I think, if you aren't doing this on social media, if you feel more reserved, if you feel like a lot of my clients feel, where you have to look a certain way and fit a certain mold, or somebody told you, you know, you need to have this brand photo up on your website and you need to say this thing, and that's going to make you seem like the perfect photographer. Well, people don't want perfect anymore.
Right.
They want real.
Exactly.
And that's one of the things that I've been doing through TikTok, especially through the vlogs with the long form content. So giving your clients some way of knowing who you are. And when I say knowing who you are, this isn't, you know, going on Instagram story and having a you know, a speech written out or something like that, and you're going to say it word for word perfectly. No, they want you to stumble over your words. They want you, and obviously you want to be confident while you say it, but they want you to be you. They want to have a conversation with you. They want, for when they see you on their TikTok feed or on YouTube or whatever, and they meet you in person, they need that to be the person. And so if I could give you any piece of advice, it's try not to try to fit a certain mold. Don't be somebody that you're not in hopes that you're going to attract the ideal client, because first of all, if you are trying to be somebody else, you're going to attract a very different client than you truly want, because it's not
absolutely.
you. It's not going to resonate with you. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But when you are you, that's the people that you start saying, you know, we love your work. We want to know a little bit more about you. How can we get to know you a little bit better? And that's where kind of that social media side of things. And basically I say, you know, if you're not the same person in person as you are on social media, there's going to be a disconnect, and we need to solve that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to do this today, Sean. You're such an awesome photographer, educator, and you're willing to share, and that's huge. So we really appreciate you doing that today. Yeah. Well, you enjoy the rest of your weekend, and have fun, have some tacos, have a beer, and relax.
Senior team interviews this weekend for me.
Oh,
so
there you go. So
it might be the week after.
Less tacos and beer.
Less tacos, less beer, and senior team stuff. Yeah. Thanks again, Matt.
Thanks, Sean. We'll talk to you soon.